up, Big Al? Can you hear me? You can talk. Can you hear me, Al? Oh, I can't hear you. Hold on.
How about now?
Yeah. So your thing is still running, but mine's not. Like my video's not running. I don't know. Anyways, well, it pops up. So you can still hear the music and everything?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't hear it. I can't hear it at all. I don't know what's going on. We'll see. Yeah, I can't stop the... Okay, here we go. Now it looks like it's working. All right, so we're back. We're live. I don't know what was going on. I was trying to get the video to stop, but I appreciate everyone getting in and being a part of the show so far. It looks like we have some people in already and saying they can't hear me. I don't know, saying they can't hear me. I don't know. Let me see. Al, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Not me says we can hear you.
Oh, okay. So he says we can hear you. Okay, so he can hear us. All right, so we're good. So you can hear us. Well, I don't know what was going on. I guess they could hear us in the background or something, but we are back. We're live. We had some technical difficulties there at the very beginning, but we are live, actually live over on YouTube. If you want to be a part of the show, we are also live on Twitter Space for the first time. Just trying this out, seeing if it works. It may or may not work. I don't know. I'm just trying something different. You know, Al, that's what I do. I just try things different.
Absolutely.
So right now, you are live on the YouTube channel. I am live on the YouTube channel, but we're also live over on our Twitter Space. So you can go check that out. And I'll try to throw that into the comments here shortly. And you can actually be a part of the show that way. So I will go in and share that. Let me go ahead and put that onto the YouTube channel now, because I'm just kind of making this up as I go.
Sure. Yeah, I get it.
As you know. But anyways, welcome in. It's the Morgan Thomas Show with Big Al and Morgan Thomas here. We talk all things Clemson football, and appreciate you getting in and being a part of the show. We got a bunch of people over on YouTube now jumping in. And if you don't mind, get in the comments, get in the chat, and let us know. Tell us hello. Tell us where you're from, and we will give you a shout out throughout the show. Steve gets in and says, "Go Tigers" from Spartanburg. So we've already got people getting in. Kevron, always one of our biggest fans. He says, "Morgan, Big Al, Houston." Well, we don't have Houston again. I don't know what happened to Houston, but Houston still not here. Hopefully he will come back. But Cope from Cope, welcome in. Kevron, not me, says he can hear us. So that's obviously a good thing, right? That he can hear us. But again, I appreciate everyone's love and support over on YouTube and over on Twitter as well. Al, you know, there's a lot of things going on.
Sure.
And specifically in the recruiting realm. And we've got a few offensive linemen. One that Clemson just finally got a commit from. You know, previously I was saying, what's going on with the offensive line? What's going on with the offensive line recruiting? A lot of people were talking about what happened to Clemson's offensive line recruiting. They have offered 14 guys at the time, and those 14 guys, nobody had committed yet.
Right.
So they now get Ronan O'Connell, 3-star guy, which I really like. He's a left tackle in high school, and he's one of those guys that is, very agile. people say, oh, well, just a 3-star. But, I don't go by just a star ranking, especially to me. What do you say? An offensive line is probably one of the more difficult things to evaluate. I mean, when I
No
look at
doubt.
the film, I don't really know what I'm looking at most of the time, unless they're just plowing a guy over, pushing everybody down off the line of scrimmage. You want to see them push off the line of scrimmage for sure. You want to see
Right.
them finish tacklers all the way down to the ground. You don't want to see them kind of with weird foot movement and wrapping their arms around guys. So, there's things you don't want to see, but also on the flip side, when it comes to offensive line recruits, you don't really know, because you don't really know who they're playing against. You know what I mean? Like sometimes
Sure.
the competition maybe not the best in the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think 100% offensive line is the hardest to project. And I mean, you're looking for several things. You're looking for how well they move their feet, how quick they are, what kind of steps they take, where they put their hands, how good can they bend, how aggressive are they, all that kind of stuff. That's the kind of things I look for when I'm looking at tape, anyways. And I mean, not to mention the size, the measurables, and all that kind of stuff. And I noticed you glossed over the fact that for the first time in my professional career, I gave the scoop on Ronan O'Connell.
You gave the scoop?
Hello, I'm the one that sent y'all the message that said, hey, inside source, Ronan O'Connell looks like he might be headed to Clemson, when nobody else thought he was coming to Clemson. It's like literally the only inside scoop I've ever had.
Well, I mean, who was your source? Was your source Paul Strelo? I mean, come on.
Negative. Oh, I beat Strelo to the punch, which rarely happens. Rarely happens.
I mean, does it ever happen? I mean, I think that might have been the first time it's ever happened.
Once. It has happened one time. We have proof in the messages. I noted it. I specifically said, I want this noted in the group chat that this is not on any message board, and I'm telling you I'm hearing Ronan O'Connell.
Well, now your sources are way better than mine, because my sources are in large part wrong. I had my sources told me that Arch Manning was coming. So
they did.
I was for sure. Hey, this guy had dinner with Peyton Manning and told me, Morg, Arch Manning is coming to Clemson. And that couldn't have been further from the truth. So obviously my sources are pretty trash, I guess you could say. So I really can't, you really can't trust me at all. That's why I stay away from, speculation or whatever. I mean, I always prop up the guys like Paul Strelo, like the 24/7 Sports Network. I think 24/7 Sports has the best network. I think the best recruiting coverage guy is Paul Strelo, like individual.
No doubt.
So that's my thought anyways. But hey, if you're just now tuning in, this is something I'm doing brand new. I don't even know if it's going to work, but just bear with me here. I've got a live show every Thursday at 7 p.m. over on YouTube. And we've been doing it, Al, I think, maybe 5 years now. We've been doing this show. We're also on the radio, 105.5 and 97.5, The Roar, when it's football season. And I do that. I produce Mickey's show in the morning on Thursday mornings, very, very early. If you're even awake at that time, I appreciate your support. But we mainly do the YouTube channel. And then tonight, I also have a Twitter space that's live. And we've got people over in the Twitter space, Zach, Tigers, Drew, Sir, Ben, and Cigar over on the Twitter space. Want to give them a shout out. I want to give a shout out over on YouTube. We've got about 30 people right now on YouTube. Terry, Steve, Joey, Starfish, John, Not Me, TB. Got people from Hendersonville, from Spartanburg, from Alabama, all over really, from Greenville. I'm excited to have everybody part of the show. If you want to get in and be a part of the show, you can do that. And you can do that by getting over on the Twitter space. If anybody request, all you got to do is get on the Twitter space and request to talk. And when you request, I will accept it, and we'll add you to the chat to be a part of the show tonight. Something new, like I said, different. So if you don't want to get your beautiful face on screen like Big Al and I do, you can at least get your voice heard and be heard amongst the Clemson fans tonight. When I look at offensive linemen, Al, I have some notes from a scout that a scout gave me. And basically, you want to look at when you look at the huddle film, right? First of all, you got to look at the measurables of a guy. Okay.
Right.
So let's look at the current football commitments for Clemson from the offensive line. Obviously, there's only one right now. Hopefully, Clemson will end up with more than one. But Ronan O'Connell from Fred J. Page High School in Franklin, Tennessee, 6'4.5". Now he'll tell you 6'5", which I respect that. 290 pounds. Now he'll tell you 300. Okay, so he's already up there in the height and weight. I think you want to look for somebody about 6'5". You want to look for somebody that's 280 to 300. I know a lot of people say more than 300, but
Sure.
it really all depends on how well you carry that weight.
Exactly.
Is it a fat 300? Is it a fat 280? Or is it a lean, mean, killing wrestling guy like a Ronan O'Connell type guy? Now, he is a 3-star guy, 37th best offensive tackle in the class. But still he has another year to go. So we'll see what he can do in his senior year in 2023. He originally had visits to Clemson, Tennessee, and Wisconsin. So Clemson got a win over Tennessee in this case, which is a big win, and Wisconsin as well, because they're trying to build something over there under Fickle. So, Clemson gets a much needed offensive tackle there. And again, when I look at his film, I really like it because he's the kind of guy that he does dominate the line of scrimmage. In high school, you want to see a guy who can play left tackle, right? Typically in high school, your competition is not an entire offensive line, so the best rise to the left tackle position. Whether or not that's really where they're going to play or not, that's where they end up being. So this guy is at that position in high school. He's playing left tackle. Will he play tackle? I don't know. I mean, right now they've moved him over to inside offensive lineman. So I don't know if he'll be inside or outside, depending on what outlet you're looking at is where they have him listed. But what I mean by the skill that he has with his footwork is that they pull him a lot. And I like that because from what I can tell with Garrett Riley's offense, pulling the offensive lineman is going to be like the bread and butter of his blocking and getting the ball, the chains moving down the field.
Yep. It looks so. Yeah, I've read several of the recruiting services, and most of them that I have read seem to think he's going to play inside at Clemson. I don't know that I have not done the film analysis on Ronan O'Connell yet. I didn't really think there was a big need to do that since we didn't. A lot of people thought he was going elsewhere. Most people thought he was going to Tennessee, and I just got that word this weekend that he may be leaning Clemson, and I was out whitewater rafting, so I wasn't able to do any film analysis. But I'll have to do that for maybe the next show where I can get on and kind of check out, give him my thoughts as far as his film's concerned. But yeah, the offensive line, very important position. Obviously, Clemson's got several others that are announcing soon. It would be some big gets battling Tennessee for another one, William Satterwhite, and battling some Georgia and some others, Florida maybe. I can't remember the other ones for Fletcher Westphal. So trying to put together a good offensive line class. The rest of the class is coming together quite nicely. As a matter of fact, we finally got a big defensive end. We talked about Darian Mayo was a huge get for Clemson. He's got the length. Now that I mentioned that, we have a DC Mayo checking in on YouTube. Do you see that? Checking in from Maryland, which is conveniently enough, I believe, where our defensive end is from. So if you are the Darian Mayo, get in and let us know, because we're really looking forward to having you in Tigertown. We need some length back at that defensive end spot. That's where we kind of rose to glory with some of those real long ones, the Bryants and the Furls of the world. So we're looking forward to that. But yeah, we got a lot of work to do to finish out this class, and hopefully some of the offensive linemen fall our way. But everything else is going just great.
Yeah, I think Darren Mayo, 6'7", 250, listed on 24/7 Sports. Composite right now, 4-star overall, 5th best player in the state of Maryland. And Clemson beat out Ohio State and Southern California for a commitment from him. Huge there. Now Clemson is known, over the years that we've been fans. Mm-hmm. Clemson is known to have that D-line university. Everybody likes to talk about the skill position, those wide receivers, D-line U, right? Or wide receiver U. But nobody talks about D-line U But really, D-line U to me is Clemson. Prove me wrong, really. Hey, we got somebody else to bring in as well, another co-host, Big Al, and that is Mr. Houston Burnett. Finally joins us in the show over on YouTube. Welcome, Houston.
Yeah, I had to get the kids to bed, so as you can see, the backdrop is a little different than normal. I want to keep those kids asleep, so I'm better late than never.
I'll try not to be too loud, even though I'm pretty excited about the show. Houston, if you didn't hear already, we have our live show, our typical live show that is every Thursday night, 7 p.m., right? And it's on YouTube. It's on Facebook. Tonight, I just did YouTube because I kind of got lazy. But I also wanted to start up something different over on Twitter. We have a Twitter space running live right now of just the audio. So if you're part of Twitter, the tweet gang over there, and you want to be a part of the show, you can. If you get over on Twitter at the Morgan T Show and follow me and then be a part of the space. If you request to be a part of the show, I will accept your request and I will put you on if you have any thoughts, concerns, questions, emotional outbursts, whatever it may be. I'll put you on through Twitter. Because I know a lot of people, anytime I do something through YouTube, nobody wants to do it because I don't want to get on, I don't want to get on TV or I don't want to get on the screen. And I get it, but whatever. Well, welcome in, Houston. I know that you've got a lot going on. If people weren't aware, Houston's got 2 babies now. So he's trying to, work out life and figure that out as he goes. But Houston, thank you for blessing us tonight and be a part of the show.
Yeah, no, this is probably the last little bit, the last show I'll be able to do for a little while. It's been a tough transitional year, so I might be doing a little bit of the leave of absence, something like that. It's not permanent that you may not see me on the show or writing for Rev in the Rock. It's just a lot going on in real life outside of Clemson world, so I gotta dial back and recalibrate everything.
Right. Well, we appreciate you being a part of the show for as long as you can be, and we'll keep you as long as you're willing. So, it's all good here on our end. We're continuing to talk about Clemson recruiting right now. By the way, Big Al, DC Mayo is actually Papa Bear in there. If you see that.
Yeah, Papa Mayo. All right.
So he is Darren's Mayo's dad in the chat. So welcome in. Thank you for being a part of the show. We've had honestly. Houston, Al, we've had a lot of dads be a part of the show. Maybe it's because we are dads. Maybe we should call the show the Dads of Clemson.
We're putting out the dad vibe. I can get on board with that.
Houston, I like a new name. Now, I like my name, the Morgan Thomas Show, because it's my name. But Dads of Clemson. I mean, Dads of the Valley? Dads of the Valley?
Just call it Dad Bod, the Dad Bod podcast. The Dad Bod Pod.
Dad Pod. Yeah, that might work out. Yeah, that might work out. But I appreciate everybody getting in over on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter or wherever you are. Again, Mayo is a guy who was a big pickup because this guy, measurable wise, I mean, giant,
through the roof. Yeah.
So I'm just kind of pulling up the highlights as I'm looking at him now from his junior season. And
don't pull up the highlights now. I knew you were going to do this. I knew you were going to put us on the spot. Good and well I'm going to want to watch this film on my own time and really give a good in-depth analysis of this. That's what I'm going to want to do, and you did it anyways.
I know. But let's pull it up anyways. Al, you're just going to have to deal with it. Now, if you're over on Twitter, you're probably feeling like, well, what in the world? Why is he doing this? He's leaving me out. And I'll just have to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry here. Let's put it in. Let's pull it in. Let's see if we can. Okay, here we go. We've got huddle.com. I think. Yeah, huddle.com film of Darian Mayo here. Again, from Olney, Maryland. Now, Olney, good counsel.
Mm-hmm.
Correct me if I'm wrong here.
Nice spin move.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, but isn't that Dorian O'Daniel's school?
That's what I was going to say. I think it's the same place Dorian O'Daniel went.
Okay, yeah, about to say. So we're taking a look at some of his highlights here over on YouTube. If you're on Twitter, I'm sorry. We're just kind of looking at Mayo's highlights from his junior year looks like about 4 minutes worth. And he's a edge position defensive end, according to 24/7 Sports, 6'7", 250 overall weight. You got him here on the outside. Looks like, what is he, number 49?
49, yeah.
Extremely fast to the outside, forces a fumble that his teammates pick up. And, he's just loving that, just extremely quick off the snap there. Here we are with another one. Hopefully you can see this pretty well. Houston, you can see the film too?
Yeah.
All right. See here.
Shedding the block.
Yeah, he continues to fight through that initial blocker who did a pretty good job keeping his hands at pad level there, keeping him in check just for a moment. So just barely in there. But he didn't stop. You know what I mean? And again, another guy super fast to the outside. If you're wanting an edge guy that can really put some stress on your quarterback, it looks like this is the kind of guy that can do it. Obviously, Coach Lemansky Hall will be his position coach there. Again, man, 7-8 yards in the backfield there off of that. So he's obviously somebody that is very confident with his outside move. Another thing interesting here, Houston, he's taking on a block from this standing position, so he can get down in a 3-point stance, or he can stand up.
Yeah, I mean, his length is a problem for any tackle, college, high school, whatever you want to say. When you're that tall, and especially if he's able to add on the weight and keep his quick, that's a problem with no matter what level you're at. And so that's kind of what I want to see is he's got, this is kind of crazy, as freakishly as athletic as he is, he's still got a lot of room to grow. And that's not a negative thing by any stretch of the imagination. It's just that optimal point is where he doesn't lose his speed on that one. So maybe it's 15 pounds or 20 pounds or something like that. But if he's able to keep that quickness and add some weight, especially in his lower body, man, that's a freak of nature right there.
Yeah, you're looking at a guy. The chat gets in. John Sarian gets in, says his legs help him make that awesome first step for his size. Impressive. Al, do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that we really need when we're talking about a pass rusher. I think he's going to, help out a lot with that just based off his length. And what a lot of people aren't talking about is the fact that because he's 6'7", think about all the batted balls. He's going to be able to do that, get in the face of the passer. And I mean, who's he going to see? He's going to see over 6'7"? I don't think so. So that's going to be helpful in a lot of ways. And I'm just glad Clemson is being able to get back to having those real long defensive ends.
Yeah, I like it. So that's some film. You can check out more of it over on huddle.com. And again, that's Darian Mayo, high school good counsel from Olney, Maryland, 2024 guy. So he'll be a freshman next season. So you'll get to see even more film from him, probably on our show. We'll be able to highlight him a little bit more during his senior season, because it's always good to see, how they progress. Obviously, a guy who can come in and develop and be one of maybe the better next best defensive linemen at Clemson. That's what I love about Clemson. Like I said, Houston, before you came in, we talked about Ronan O'Connell at offensive lineman, getting the commit from him earlier this week. That was huge for Clemson. That was huge for Thomas Austin, because they needed Clemson is always, at least in the past couple of years, they've seemed to be very fast and quick on getting those defensive line commits. This year, it seemed like it was kind of slow playing on the offensive side of the ball. How important is it that Clemson get that very first offensive line commit at the beginning of this week, now knowing that we have a few more coming, or possibly coming? I won't say coming to Clemson, but a few more announcements coming tomorrow and then into next week.
Well, you got it's important for a couple reasons, especially with Ronan O'Connell. One, it's kind of a surprise for the majority of the summer. Everybody was expecting him to be headed to Tennessee. So for Clemson to go into his home state and get him is a big deal for momentum, especially, being able to recruit in that state. Getting that first lineman is always a good thing, especially with a couple of the guys that, Clemson is still waiting on, maybe as far as profile being a little higher ranked. It's always good to have someone that can be in their ear as far as someone in the boat with Clemson. And so it's always good when you get that first commitment, but it's always better when you get that first commitment and it's a surprise in a good way. So I think it's all positives when it comes to the commitment of Ronan O'Connell.
I'm going to see if I can pull up the big board for everyone over on. Let me see if it. I don't know if I can make it any bigger. Maybe. I'm not sure if I can make it any bigger. Maybe I can. There we go. So hopefully you can see this a little bit, but maybe I'll zoom in even more. This is my Twitter sheet that I have that I post out there. Can you guys see that pretty good?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. So obviously this is the orange side is the offensive side of the ball. They don't have any more offers for quarterback. So we're just going to kind of look at the check-in on the recruiting trail. They only have 60 offers right now, fellas. So with 14 commits out of 60, I mean, that's 23.33% commit rate. That's pretty good. I mean, considering other teams are out here offering 150, 200, their commit rate is very low percentage-wise to Clemson. And that's just a testament to how Dabo Swinney does it, because everybody says, oh, Dabo Swinney's old school. No, Dabo Swinney says a commitment is a commitment, and it has to mean something. That's all he says. And I agree with that. If that's your philosophy, go with it. And I think that people need that more nowadays. So that's the way it is. But you look at the offensive side of the ball, you've got positions here. Jaden Davis, DJ Lagway are players here. Walker White and Air Nolan. Quarterbacks pretty much said and done for. I think they're moving on to next year. Running back, David Iziomume, super fast running back. CJ got him pretty early, only went after one. Now, after all that flack he got for not being able to get somebody, until the very end of last recruiting cycle, he goes in and gets David Iziomume fairly quickly, and after only offering one guy. So I think that, again, is another testament to CJ developing as a recruiter. Al, would you agree?
Yeah, without a doubt. Not only does he get that, he goes in 2025 and gets Gideon Davidson, and I mean, just two absolute studs at running back whose stock has continued to rise and will probably continue to do so. It's just a big get for Spiller. He's got a lot of flack on the message boards about not being able to get the guys. Even people got over Tony Elliott for getting his guys late, and it's just it's good to see CJ doing his thing out there. He's been an amazing ambassador for Clemson football, and he's beginning to show his recruiting chops as well.
Houston, it's been a while since you've been on the show. One thing that I wanted to bring up is these wide receivers over here, and that is TJ Moore, 4-star guy from Florida, and then Bryant Wesco, 5-star guy from Texas. How huge was it for Clemson to finally get back to landing those 5-star wide receivers that they used to be? Now, like I said, there's always been this debate. Is Clemson wide receiver U, or are they D-line U? Well, more recently, they've definitely proven that they're D-line U, and the wide receiver U part has kind of been, I don't want to say missing, but it's not to where it used to be. Not because they don't have talented guys. It's just the production hasn't been there when they get on campus. So I think that a lot of the guys that are still on the roster have an opportunity under Garrett Riley to shine. But it's also great to see another young position coach, former player under Dabo, do well after he finally breaks in to what it's like to get into the living room with moms and dads and really talk about Clemson in a positive light. He lands TJ Moore. I'm talking about Tyler Gresham, lands TJ Moore and lands Bryant Wesco. I think the other guys that are there, Taylor, Paylor, and Wingo, are probably now not on the board because they were going for 2. They might go for 3, depending on another guy that we can talk about as well. But how big was it for Clemson to bring in Moore and Wesco in this class? Now, I know we got to wait a year, but man, how big was it?
Yeah, I mean, if you're only going to take 2 true wide receivers, I think this is about as good as you could do. Personally, I wish we'd have taken more, but I also know they're never going to run anybody off, and that's admirable. That's fine. And so I think out of that group, TJ Moore and Bryant Wesco, I would think we're on everybody's wish list. TJ Moore, out of the two, is my personal favorite. I just like the way that he makes his cuts and how he runs. He's very, very smooth as a route runner. And then Bryant Wesco is just a freak. He's a freakish wide receiver. Both of these guys are great gets. I think it's good to finally get that type of talent back. I think this is, part Grisham. Also, I mean, I'd imagine Garrett Riley was involved with it too. So I think overall, I think you couldn't have asked for a better haul. The only thing that would make it better is getting another athlete that we'll talk about later.
Hashtag we want Mike, I think, is what Mr. Houston Burnett is talking about. And for sure, I know that commitment is still possibly out there. That recruiting, trail, or that recruiting process is nowhere near over yet. So we'll see how it goes. But again, going over into the offensive side of the ball and recruiting, you've got tight end Christian Bentancur, who's another big time tight end. That's a very, very versatile tight end as well. Kind of a bigger, stockier guy that can beat you physically, but also has great hands. So I love what I see from him as well. Hey, this offensive side of the recruiting class for 2024 has really stepped up and kind of come into its own later on into the summer. Al, would you agree?
Yeah, no doubt. And like Houston was mentioning, the fact that, if we're going to have to get two, those are probably the two best ones you're going to get. It's funny you say you like TJ Moore a little bit better. You like him the most. I actually like Bryant Wesco the most. When I put together my wide receiver wish list, he was at the top. In all of these guys, we've had several conversations about everybody we have offered, all of whom we believe were worthy of Clemson offers. So this is not a slight that I like Wesco and TJ Moore the best, because they're all fantastic. I actually was very high on Braylon Staley. I was a lot higher on him than I was, or than the industry is. And I wouldn't have been sad to see him as our second or third wide receiver, take either one. But once you got these two, I mean, they were the top two in most people's wish list. You got those, you kind of shut things down, and you're kind of in a holding pattern for, a quote unquote athlete in Mike Matthews, even though I think he's technically being courted at wide receiver for Clemson. So it's been really nice. And Morgan kind of tiptoed around the fact that we haven't been wide receiver U, and it has been missing, Morgan. And like you said, it's not that we don't have talent. We do have some talented guys, but we have not played like wide receiver U. And whether it's strictly on the wide receivers, whether it's the offense, whether it's the quarterback, whatever may be the challenges to that, we have flat out not seen the production. And I'm hoping that the TJ Moores, the Bryant Wescos, and in fact, this last class as well, kind of get us back to that, because that's one of the things that made Clemson great was, stud quarterback play and great wide receivers.
Now, if you're over on YouTube, we got about 40 people watching over on YouTube. We got a handful of people watching or listening over on our Twitter space. You can be a part of the show if you request to talk over on the Twitter space. Don't be shy. Get in, talk with us. Let's talk about Clemson, our favorite team, as we go throughout the Morgan Thomas Show here every Thursday night, 7 p.m. And over on YouTube, I put in a link as well. You can join in. And I think we can actually have, Houston, this is crazy to say this, but I think it's telling me I can have up to 25 guests. So we could have a party for sure. All you got to do is click on the link in the chat that I put in there, and you can be a part of it. Now I can have it to where we'll turn your camera off. So it's literally just your voice. So you don't have to be on screen. I know people are like so camera shy nowadays, but or really always, but you don't even have to be on screen. You can just call in or click on that link and be a part of it. So come join us. Let's talk about Clemson for sure. Before we get into the offensive line, or continue the offensive line rather, let's jump back in, fellas, and let's look at some of the chat room, if you will, if you don't mind. Let's pull up some of the chat here. And Hard Time gets in and says, hashtag free Houston. Hard Time's going to be pretty sad right now to know that Houston's going to be taking a sabbatical for us. He's going to be resting up, enjoying his life as a dad. working on some things in his career. So we're going to miss Houston for, I think, just maybe a few days. He'll be back. I mean, once the season starts, Big Al, do you really think that Houston can stay away? I mean, it's just not going to happen. I mean, the minute that Clemson beats Florida State by 45 points, Houston will be right back on the show. I just know it. Know it.
I'll make this commitment. If we get to November and Clemson just absolutely shreds South Carolina, I'll be 100% back on that show prior to the ACC championship game. Notice I'm foreshadowing what I think is going to happen this year, and I'll come back then. And hard time, if you want to start a hashtag on every show for Morgan between now and then, hashtag either we want Houston or hashtag bring back Houston. I'll do something. I'll figure something out for you.
Well, Hard Time gives me a hard time all the time over on Twitter as well. He says, I don't treat you right, Houston. So I need to do better. Better. Maybe I'm running you off. That's probably what's really happening. John Lee over on YouTube gets in and says, convince me that Riley will fix offense now. I think it takes a year. Can't wave the magic wand and it be fixed. Okay, so I'm curious. We got a few people over on the Twitter space. Let me see if I can get them in. Guys, if you're in, you can go ahead and speak now and be a part of the show. But I'm curious. The question is, do you think Riley will be able to fix the offense now, or is it going to take a year?
Thanks, Morgan, for having me. I say immediate impact, because he's going to show these receivers how to block. He's going to show the receivers how to because you got to realize, before he became an offensive coordinator, before he became a quarterback's coach, he was also a wide receivers coach. So he's going to have his hand in everything. So, I mean, he's going to be able to help Grisham get those guys the separation they need to get the ball. He's going to show them how to block in this offense because, I mean, it's a block-heavy offense as well.
I appreciate you giving us your thoughts there, Tigers. Guys, do you agree with him on that? Do you think that, it won't take a lot of time to get the offense back to rolling? I mean, we've got people in the chat saying, hey, he did it with the Frogs. Why not with the Tigers?
I'll let Al go first. I have thoughts on that.
Oh, I don't doubt you have many thoughts, Houston. So I think it all depends on what your definition of back is. You get the offense back, getting the offense rolling. I certainly expect a pretty good leap of improvement this year, just based on scheme alone, and hopefully based on healthy receivers. Of course we have the threat of Cade Klubnik and getting out of the pocket, making plays, on the run, that kind of thing, just spread, buying time. That kind of deal. And sometimes, he may be running out a little bit too quick. We talked about that a little bit on the show. But yeah, it just kind of depends. I don't think you can, wave the magic wand, so to speak. We've got who we've got. And it's a question of, are they going to kind of come out of their shell? Are they going to finally have the light come on for them? Or is it just a combination of all these things, whether it be new system, new quarterback, all that kind of stuff that finally gets us back to at least a semblance of what we were before?
So I'm on the same path as Al on this. Is like we don't quite know, but I think that if there's a lot of parallels between this offense and when Chad Morris arrived before the 2011 season. You had a quarterback that was oozing with talent. You had some wide receivers that were lesser known. I mean, obviously Sammy Watkins was a freshman, but he was just a freshman. Nobody knew what he was going to do. You had lost Jamie Harper, so you were going to predominantly rely on Andre Ellington as your running back, and your offensive line was nowhere near where it is today. The thing that I always come back to is roster-wise, Clemson is millennium far ahead to where it was when Chad Morris got here. People want to, crap on the wide receivers all they want, but top to bottom, this wide receiving core is better than the one that Chad Morris inherited, and that's with the guys that they had. You had a bunch of unproven guys like Sharon Peake and Sammy Watkins and Adam Humphries back in 2011 because you didn't know. With this team, you have the potential of a healthy Bo Collins having an outstanding year, a healthy Adam Randall, which I don't know why people are discounting. What he did last year was great, and he was hurt for most of the year. This kid is built like a brick house. Looks like DK Metcalf. If he has a big year next year, that's trouble for a lot of teams. And then most of all, you got Antonio Williams. I think that he brings a level of ferocity to that position that they didn't have in 2021. He kept Clemson in it in 2022. And I think the infusion of a new quarterback, a new system, cleaned up offensive play within your wide receiving core, an emergence of at least 3 to 4 guys that you can rely on, which I think Clemson has. And then the usage of the tight end and the usage of the field, if you know what I mean, that can change things a lot. And it may take a little time for that offense to kick and really start rolling. But, it could be similar to 2011 where the first 2 to 3 games, they look okay. It's not the most amazing thing on earth, but then it clicks when they play Florida State. And it's rolling from there. So, we'll see. But I do think that they can talent-wise go head-to-head and really improve in 2023.
We got a bunch of comments over on YouTube. We'll get to them. We got a hand raised over here on our Twitter space, and we'll give precedent to that as well. You're over here on Twitter space. If you want to get in, go ahead and speak. Mute is off now. Whoever's next up, go ahead and let us know what your thoughts are. Well,
if we're still talking about the offense, I think it will take a couple, 1 to 4 games to get it settled. But I think Garrett Riley's going to run the ball a lot more than Brandon Streeter. So I think our offense is going to be a lot more successful. So, yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I agree. I think that one of the things that really frustrated most fans out there, including myself, was making your very young quarterback pass 50-something times when you had 2 really, really strong running backs. It made no sense to me. And now I understand Tennessee has a very statistically very good rushing defense. But I just don't understand how, even with the statistics in front of you, you decide, you know what? We're not going to play strength versus strength. We're going to just avoid it altogether and do weakness versus weakness. In that case, it made no sense to me why you would go that route. And obviously, the result is what the result was. But I agree there. I think that Clemson should show that they are improving in their run game. Maybe not so much statistically, but I do feel like that their predictability with what they're going to do is going to be better. Their sequencing of plays, I think, will be better. I think Garrett Riley, as you guys mentioned, or kind of danced around, I guess, too, is we saw it in the spring game. He's going to use the middle of the field. I mean, how many passing charts did I have to do before people started to realize, hey, Clemson doesn't use the middle of the field? Well, some of that was that they wanted to limit the amount of mistakes that could be made from an errant pass. You want to cut off half of the field in that case if you're not confident that the ball is going to be on target. So I understand that. But over 12 games, over 13 games, that's, unacceptable. You have to be able to throw the ball across the middle of the field. And we saw that in the spring game that they were doing that. They were doing that with the tight end. A tight end, was it Banks Pope, that doesn't even have a scholarship. So, a guy that was already able to shine because of the routes he was running. So Houston, what you went back to earlier, I agree with, because at first I was that guy that said, you know what, this offensive coordinator, any offensive coordinator, is going to need a year to reset. He's going to need a year to clean house or get rid of the guys that aren't bought in. I don't agree with that now. Now, the more I think about it, the more I think I do think Bo Collins is bought into what Dabo Swinney is bringing, what Dabo Swinney wants to build. I do think Adam Randall is bought in. I think Brennan Spector is bought in. I think Stelato's bought in, even though he hasn't had an opportunity because of injury. I know Cole Turner's bought in. Antonio Williams. These guys that are there are bought in, and the true freshmen ought to be bought in for sure. So I do feel like the players that are there want to be there. They're not just kind of coasting and doing the bare minimum and quiet quitting and ready to move on. I don't think that. I do think that those guys are still interested in showing the nation what they can do and why they were recruited. And by the way, Clemson didn't recruit like a bunch of no-name guys. They have a ton of big-name recruits in the offensive or the wide receiver group that just need the opportunity to show what they can do, and also need some positives to go their way, meaning from the quarterback position, need to have some balls that are thrown on time and in stride and on target, right? But also from a medical position, they need to stay healthy. They need to not have these little small things that come up and all of a sudden 6 weeks later, you're still nursing the toe like Chipper Jones. I mean, that's the thing. They got to get healthy and stay healthy, but they have to have an opportunity to get passes that can let them shine. I think they will get that not only from Cade Klubnik, to me being a better quarterback, a former Elite 11 MVP and a 5-star guy, but I also think they can get that, as Houston has mentioned many times, from this play calling. Just the difference in play calling, I think, will help Clemson be able to get back. Maybe they won't get back to like Nuke and Sammy on the same team year, but I think that they can get back to saying, hey, you know what? Clemson's at least scary passing the ball. Do you feel like by the end of the year, Clemson should be, a threat passing the ball?
Well, let's go back to the initial statement that was made. What was the caller's name, or the person on the Twitter Spaces name?
That's Big Matthews. Big Matthew.
Big Matthew. Okay. I actually agree with his point that there's going to be a lot more usage or better usage of the running backs this year. I think people like to look at the last name Riley and assume that both are going to run these up-tempo, throw it around, Andy Reid-esque offenses, but there is a lot more similarity. I don't want to say a lot more similarity, but there's more of a ground and pound aspect, a part of Garrett Riley's offense than as opposed to Lincoln Riley's offense, where Lincoln Riley is very much like, let's throw for 1 billion yards. Let's let the quarterback run around and see what happens there. The path that Garrett Riley took to get to TCU was a little different than what he did than his brother. He was at TCU, then he worked at Kansas, and then he went to App State, where he learned some running concepts from I believe Satterfield before he moved on. Then he crafted some stuff at ECU, and then at SMU with Sonny Dykes, where he really kind of built his offense. And so what he's done is, the best way I can put it is, he's created a modernized version of Chad Morris's offense. Chad Morris was the smash mouth spread is what he wanted to call himself. And that's what Garrett Riley's done to the modern age, a 10-year reboot of that, where it is the new concepts of passing, the Lincoln Riley, Joe Brady, Josh Heupel type passing concepts, a part of this, alongside of a strong running performance. That's not uncommon to see them to have a formation with 2 backs in the backfield, or a heavy usage of quarterback running. That's what they did with Max Duggan last year, and that's part of the reason why he almost won the Heisman. So it's all the concepts for both running the ball and passing the ball this year are pretty similar and simple. Okay, everything is simplified. Garrett Riley has said, we want them to know what's coming, and we want them to know that they can't stop it, because we do it so well every week. And that's the name of the game in this. So you're going to see tightened up routes, wide receivers who can run where they need to go and get open and know everything they need to do. And then as far as the run blocking and rushing goes, you're going to get a lot heavier dosages of off counter to the edge, sealing that edge, getting to the outside for Shipley, draws, a lot of third and 3 kind of draw stuff like that. And then quarterback runs for Cade Klubnik, which I think are between him and Max Duggan, I think there's a lot of similarities. Cade's faster for me. So I think that, yes, you're going to see, especially early on, a lot more usage of the run game until maybe that pass game is caught up. And when things get rolling there, it could really, really get humming.
All right, so we got a ton of people in the chat. I want to give them a shout out here. About 44 people watching over on YouTube right now. A handful of people over on the Twitter space as well, getting just the audio version. But you can be a part of the show whether you're on Twitter or whether you're on YouTube. I know nobody ever gets in on YouTube because you're scared. You're scared, but I'm going to put in the link again just in case somebody in here wants to be brave. I got the link in the chat. If in case somebody wants to be brave over on YouTube, come join us, and we'll do just audio. We won't throw your face. We won't, even though unless you're very attractive, then I will definitely show your face. But anyway, so Tiggs also has a good comment as well. Hit the like button. You know how YouTube works. Having a lot of viewers is really great. That really helps us a ton. But just hitting that like button, I'm not really sure why it works so well, but if you hit the like button and it gets up higher to the amount of people we have watching, then that means a lot. So we got about 15 likes. I'm looking right now. If we could get more likes on the video, I would appreciate it, and just help us out, get the word out about the channel, because as we get closer and closer to football season, fellas, when we get to football season, man, there's many shows where we'll have 100 people between, I think some of our best shows, Al, we've done like 250. So some of our best shows, we get a ton of people in here talking about Clemson, especially when after a big game, it's really fun. So come in, get in, like it now, be part of the show, subscribe. I throw out videos as I can, and we go from there. But yeah, let's go through the chat real quick and just give everybody a shout out. So Mason says, I wish I could, but I'm at work. Well, hopefully we're giving you something to think about other than boring work, for sure. Next up, Tig says, if you don't hit the like button, then are you a true fan, a true Tiger fan? That is a question. That's for sure. Are you a true fan of the Tigers if you're not liking this show? TB gets in and says, Cade's accurate passing will make all of the receivers perform well. I mean, that's a pretty straightforward comment. Al, do you agree, disagree?
Well, I certainly hope that to be the case. That's kind of what we're all rooting for, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that need to change with the offense, and we've talked about it to death, is the fact that the scheme just needed to change. I didn't care when we were setting record after record after record. I didn't like the Tony Elliott offense. I was vocally against that, and people wanted to talk about how crazy you were.
Wait a minute, Al. You didn't like the Tony Elliott offense, even though they were setting records?
I said this on the show. Don't act like this is news to you. It's great. The only reason that offense to me worked is because our players were better than everybody else. I want an offense that can work no matter who you have on the field. And the fact that Garrett Riley was able to make this offense work with, at TCU, I think says something. They had some good players, don't get me wrong, but they're not recruiting 5-star after 5-star like a lot of people are. And the fact that he was able to just completely go out there and dominate and get people open, use the middle of the field, use simple concepts. I mean, that's impressive stuff, and that's why I have so much hope for the Clemson, team moving forward, especially even this year. Those simple adjustments can be made. Houston liked to talk about and you said something about the passing charts in the middle of the field. I've been talking about that for years. I absolutely hate it that we don't use the middle of the field. I understand the fact that it's tricky.
Sound like my dad. You sound like my dad. I've been talking about the offensive line for years.
So your dad's right too. Is that what you're trying to say? I get it. I understand. I don't like it when we don't use the middle of the field. I'm a big tight end guy. I think they're an unbelievable weapon that if they're used correctly. And we saw a lot of that in the spring game, which I really enjoyed seeing. I understand the fact that, you can make mistakes over the middle of the field real easy. There's a lot of players in there, but you also get the most open passes over the middle of the field too. And I think that's something we have to look at. I think the trade-off is easily worth it. And I really look forward to seeing what Garrett Riley can do this year.
Tiggs gets in and says, we need that T. Higgins type player. Houston, do you think Clemson can be successful even if they don't have T. Higgins?
Yeah. I mean, we don't need T. Higgins. We'd like to have T. Higgins. But if you think about it, in 2015, Clemson made it to the national title game without Mike Williams. And in that wide receiving core was Artavis Scott and 2 freshmen and Hunter Renfrow, who was also a freshman at the time, and Jordan Leggett. That's not too dissimilar to what you got now as far as what the known commodities are that are out there. You don't have to have a T. Higgins. T. Higgins is great. I'll take a T. Higgins if he's on your wide receiving core. That's a game breaker when it comes down to that. But you can also look at other teams. Look at Georgia last year. They didn't have a T. Higgins. Now they had Brock Bowers, and he is, the best tight end in college football. But at the same time, you didn't have a wide receiver that you could split out, know that you could throw a junk ball, and he was going to come down with it. They didn't have that. They ran their scheme really well. They schemed up the right way, and they got their guys open. And I think that's what Garrett Riley's going to do. You don't have to have T. Higgins in an offense like this. Even on another case, you think about when Joe Brady came in to LSU in 2019. Everyone on that offense was a relative unknown. Justin Jefferson was good. Joe Burrow had some good games the year before, and Jamar Chase was I want to say he was either redshirted or injured because he left shortly after. Or no, he was a redshirt in 2018. So you think about that. They all just kind of clicked into place in 2019 when everybody was executing at a high level. You didn't necessarily have a T. Higgins. And they had a Jamar Chase, different type of player, but nobody knew who he was prior to then. That could happen. I'm not going to say it is, but that's not to say that you can't have success or you can't have a high-functioning caliber offense without a T. Higgins type player.
Yeah, I think so. I think that Clemson's offense, I'm just, like I said, I'm really ready for the season, fellas. I'm ready to see what they can do. I do feel like it'll be better. And I'm excited and positive looking right now because why not? Why not? Now, will they get back to the college football playoffs? I don't know. But, hey, one game at a time. Let's see what they can do. I do feel like they have the ability to build up. They have to travel to Duke first, and that's not just a pushover game. Duke really showed what they could do last year. Mike Elko has put in his philosophy, his culture there, but they also, didn't beat a ton of really awesome teams either. So, and they have their bread and butter running quarterback. So I think that Clemson can stop that, Riley Leonard, but we'll see how it goes. I do feel like it's a difficult game, but I don't think it's not a winnable game for sure. Mason gets in over on YouTube and says, what do y'all think about Troy Stellato? Well, we really haven't seen him. We know we have. I saw him in person practicing, but he had a huge brace on his leg still. So I really don't know. It's hard to say. I know a lot of people, there's still a lot of hype around this guy. It kind of goes back to just the fact that, he is what he could do in high school. And by the way, Big Al had to leave right at 8:00. So he gave us the hat wave and said goodbye. Houston, I don't know if you have to leave as well, but whenever you need to dip, you just let me know and you can get off as well. But yeah, for me, Troy Stellato is one of those guys. I really don't know how I feel. I'd love to see what he can do, but I'm still curious to see, if he can get on the field. Really, that's his biggest obstacle right now is getting on the field, right? John Lee over on YouTube says explosive plays got to be there. I agree. Houston, do you feel like that Clemson has had a huge drop off in explosive plays and they need to get back to that?
Yeah. You can't have all explosive plays, but it's been lacking the last couple of years. I think that's partly because of this lack of confidence between quarterback and offensive coordinator. And so now you have a fresh start. You got a glimpse that there are going to be more explosive plays just with a new quarterback alone, with what you saw in the North Carolina game and even some flashes in the Tennessee game. I think that can improve definitely. I think that's part of what they're looking to do. This isn't Garrett Riley's offense isn't, we're just going to nickel and dime you down the field. No, it's scheming this up, setting you up for one thing, and then dropping the hammer on you for another. So, yeah, you might get a 3 or 4 yard run, and then he's going to take a shot. I don't think he's got a set number in his head like Chad Morris wanted to throw the ball deep once every 10 plays. I don't think that's the rationale. I think it's a pretty flawed rationale in itself.
I mean, you got to always test it, right? We got a hand raised over on Twitter. Tiger's Chef is over on Twitter. You're live now. Jump in. Let us know what you think.
So, Morgan, because we have a scholarship problem right now. What are we going to do to settle that problem, you think, before the season starts? Because right now, I think we're still over at least one scholarship. Is that correct?
Yeah, from my count right now, Clemson, and I'm pulling up the roster, Clemson has 59 returning players on scholarship. They have 26 players signed a national letter of intent. And then they had one transfer in Paul Tyson. So that leaves them at -1 for available spots according to the 85 limit. Now, there are walk-ons that are still on the team included in my 59. So unfortunately, now TigerNet posted an article about this that drummed up a bunch of national news and anger towards Dabo Swinney. It is not that they are losing a scholarship, because a walk-on scholarship is 1 year at a time. You get awarded each year. So everyone goes into that knowing next year may or may not be guaranteed, depending on how the roster goes. Especially in today's world, it's even less likely because of transfer portal, right? So a lot of people would rather take a transfer portal guy than bring a walk-on. Dabo Swinney, because he was a walk-on himself, because of the walk-on success that Clemson has had, he still cherishes that. And I don't blame him for that, honestly. I think that it's a good thing to still have some walk-ons part of your roster. Now, the thing is, you've got Hunter Helms, redshirt sophomore. He's still on one of those walk-on scholarships. You've got Dominique Thomas, redshirt junior. He's still on one of those, running back. Remember, they call him Quadzilla. And then you have Holden Casperson, long snapper. That is also, he's a redshirt sophomore, and he is part of that. So they have 3 that had walk-on scholarships last year and one of them, as of this moment, may not be able to have a scholarship in 2023. Now, Houston, I don't know if you agree with this, and Tiger Chef, I don't know if you agree with this, but in the day of NIL, I'm almost thinking, why don't you just use NIL money in the equivalent? I mean, if you really need it. Now, I know some people would say, well, do you really want to pay a walk-on that much? But I mean, if you got the money and, they would have to leave the team otherwise, why not find a way to have your NIL help, bridge that monetary gap? Maybe the player has to pay themselves through, but maybe it helps in that case. I don't know. I mean, we've even talked about it on the flip side, like some of the really good players like XT. Why doesn't XT not take a scholarship and instead get a huge NIL deal? I don't know. I don't know if that's allowed or not. I'm just kind of assuming that could be an option. It may not even be an option. But for me, and I'll pass it to you, Houston, now, is, I mean, the easiest answer is someone like Dominique Thomas or somebody, won't be able to get another scholarship in 2023.
It's probably going to be the holder, because Dominique Thomas is going to likely be he's going to probably be in the rotation at running back some this year. He's performed really well, and Hunter Helms is likely your backup quarterback behind Cade, because he's performed well. And I just think if they had to draw straws, that's probably going to be the long snapper. Now, to your point, it wouldn't surprise me if there was some kind of legacy NIL deal that someone within Tiger Impact or whatever collectives that are out there for Clemson don't pull something together to assist with that long snapper's tuition in some way. That wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. But I also wouldn't put it past that, Greg Williams leaving the team was a bit of a surprise to some, but some it wasn't. And it wouldn't surprise me if there maybe is another positional player, I don't know where, that maybe they dip their toe into the portal after spring ball gets rolling on. I don't know where or how that would happen. They're going to have to hit that 85 line somehow. And so I'd say odds are probably going to be the holder, but it wouldn't surprise me if, this mystery, I don't know, lineman somewhere. I just said that not because I know anything. I'm just kind of tossing a position out there that they maybe leave the team or something like that. There's a couple of different ways this works out, but it's a lot better to be just 1 over than, 3 or 4 over like they were.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that bad of a situation right now. There's still time to see what happens in the fall. Some players may or may not decide to continue with the program. Something might happen. Who knows? There's no rush really. But I'm sure Dabo Swinney will try to find the best possible option, for all the players involved. It's not fun to have to deal with the 85 limit, but it is what it is. You have to, it's part of roster management, right? So I think players should have to understand that, in my opinion. Tiggs gets in, says Riley took the Frogs to the Natty with less talent than we have, Clemson. And he says, as long as the defense shows up, we will be fine. Well, I mean, is there any question that the defense won't show up?
It's just got to improve in the back end. Actually, I think the strength of this team this year could be what was lacking last year. I think the secondary is going to have a massive year. And then factor in your linebacking core is great. The potential on the defensive line. People want to cry about defensive end, but, if you get production from XT, Tyler Davis, Root, Peter Woods, anybody else, to Tamarian Parker, Trey Williams, whoever else behind there, if you have a productive defensive line, then you're going to have a great year on that side of the ball. I think if you can have a trajectory of an offense improving, like getting those mistakes that killed you down, because if you think about last year in the 2 losses, it boils down to about 6 plays. It was about 4 offensive plays, and 2 special teams plays. If you can cut that in half or cut it down by 2/3, you're going back to the playoff, and you might go to the national championship game. So it's really about cutting those out. If you cut down 3 picks, 4 picks really, and 2 kick return fumbles, that's the difference in 12-0.
John Lee gets in, says, Houston, let us know, Houston, you know something, smiley face. You know something, you tell us.
I don't know anything. That's something I really don't know. I figured I'm just kind of thinking out loud of like what position is more likely to have somebody maybe dip. It'd probably be somebody on one of the lines, but I don't know. John
Sarian gets in and says, Makuba is 10 pounds heavier. Maybe he's going to play a few levels better. I mentioned that him just playing in his natural position would help, because last year he had to kind of sub in for a bunch of people who were injured.
Yeah, I think when they initially said that he might play some nickel this year too, people cursed the skies. But that position is a rotational basis. It depends on what formation you're trying to do. That could be somebody like Woodaz playing that position, or you can drop Makuba down there if you are facing a pass-heavy offense. You need somebody else on the field. You've got a lot more numbers in that secondary of guys that played really well. I saw somebody complaining about this post-spring game. It's like, I'm tired of hearing about how good our defense played because our offense stunk. It's like, well, I think our offense didn't do well partly because our defense played so well. Makuba played really well. Sheridan Jones played really well. Mickens, I think, is going to have a fantastic year. You got depth in your secondary, and I think that's only going to help Makuba develop to potentially be the talent that we thought he could be.
All right, so I'm looking through to see some comments in the message boards. I got to get off the message boards, man. But I love them. I love to find what's been talking about, what's people are chatting about right now. It looks like William Satterwhite is going to announce 2 p.m. Friday. And it seemed like it was between Clemson and Tennessee. So we will see what will happen there. Will Clemson be able to beat out Tennessee again in the recruiting trail? We will see. And then obviously everybody's still concerned about, or at least interested in, what Mike Matthews is going to do for 2024. There's a post in here about Antoine Hill, quarterback. I think is it for the 2025 class? Now that they have Hebert, are they even interested in Antoine Hill? I think that was one guy that a lot of the fans wanted to see. He's got a strong arm, don't get me wrong, but I'm not sure if they really need two in one class, but they didn't get one this class in 2024. So you could say that there is a gap there. But, I mean, my biggest thing about bringing in two is, don't you start to get yourself in that same problem where you had like 5 leave all at once? Remember that a few years ago?
You're essentially, anyone who comes in next year is playing to be a backup, which, if you lose – even if you lose next year, with Hunter Tyson, or not Hunter Tyson, Paul Tyson. If you lose them, sorry, my dogs are running in here. If you lose him, and then maybe even Hunter Helms decides to grad transfer and play 1 year and be a starter somewhere, I don't know. That's just something that I was thinking about the other day. But if that were to happen, I'd expect that they would just go to the portal for this year and get someone who would be a solid backup, someone maybe a little bit better than what Hunter Johnson and Paul Tyson were. But it wouldn't surprise me if that were something that would happen this year as far as quarterback goes. My thing about 25 is people are uneasy for some reason about Hebert. I think he's a great passer, but I also think that the eye on the prize is going to be the bevy of quarterbacks in 2026. It is loaded. It is a loaded class in 2026. I think that, even if Clemson doesn't land Julian Lewis, who I think everyone on the planet wants, there are still several other guys in that class that are championship caliber talent that would be interested in coming to Clemson.
Still looking through the chat here. Threw in the link again over on the description. If you want to get in and be a part of the show, you can. Everybody talks about wanting to be on the show. I give you a link, nobody joins. That's just how it goes. But the Twitter space guys, they definitely are not afraid to get in and be a part of it. That's why I like that I threw them in and allowed them. We got about close to 50 people watching over on YouTube right now, and a handful of guys over on the Twitter space as well. Trying to get a ton of people to get on the Twitter space, but it is what it is. Some people you get, some people you don't. But I appreciate everybody's love and support for the show. Again, every Thursday night, we try to do this, talk about all things Clemson, anything you want to talk about. There's a few housekeeping things. One is make sure you hit the like button. We got about 29 likes and 50 people watching. So if you don't mind, go in there, hit the like button. That will help out our algorithm on YouTube. And then the other thing is, join. We have a few things that you can do. We don't have sponsors anymore. I used to have sponsors, but now we've turned it into a membership. The membership is 99 cents a month. I don't ask anybody to do it, but if you want to have some badges and some cool emojis that I've made for you, you can get in and be a part of that and have some badges and cool emojis. And you get a shout out, an exclusive shout out every show as well. We have one membership guy, and that is Anderson Patrick. And he has been a member for a few months now. He's got a badge and he gets to use the emojis when he is a part of the show. You can do that. In the description as well, we have our DraftKings link. Now, DraftKings does not sponsor me in any way, but they allowed me, or they have the opportunity for me to start a league of all my friends and whoever wants to join me. So I'm started this fantasy league. It's called the Morgan Thomas Show League. Click the link, get in it. If you don't already have an account, sign up. It doesn't cost anything. I run contests for Formula One, for Major League Baseball, for NBA, whatever is running, really. I try to run a contest, free contest for you to get into. Not going to win anything right now, but in the future, I was thinking, hey, maybe during football season, we could throw in something and do maybe $1, pick 'em or draft contest or something fun. Nothing too big, but just something fun between fans of the show and fans of Clemson for sure. And then, as always, don't forget to subscribe over to YouTube and follow me over on Twitter at The Morgan T Show. And if you're a fan of what we do here, we don't just do this on YouTube, but we are also on 105.5 FM The Roar. Houston is a part of my show during football season at night on Thursday nights, if we can get him in. And then every Thursday morning, I am on Mickey Plyler's show to give you my my 80s hits. I'm the 80s DJ whenever I am the producer for Mickey's show, and I just have a good time with that. So yeah, so that's some housekeeping there. Again, I just appreciate everyone being a part of the show every week. So thank you so much. All right, so let's see if we got any other topics here that we can get into on college football. So this is something non-Clemson related. I like to talk to you about it, Houston, because you're a pretty well versed overall college football guy. And recently there was an article that said college football's most exciting players for 2023 are that all right, and they've got a list of a few guys, some that Clemson wanted to get, and I wanted to go through them and see what you thought. Now, the first one on the list for most exciting players in 2023 is Quinshon Judkins, running back from Ole Miss, true freshman. He ran for over 1,500 yards and 16 touchdowns. So, I mean, if he can continue to do that, he'll be probably, if not the best running back in the nation. So, do you?
Uh-oh. Hold on. Let me try this.
Well, I have no idea what happened.
Oh,
we are back.
So
we're back, and we're still live, Houston. So I don't know what happened.
Okay, I was worried there.
Yeah, we're back. We're still live. I have no idea what happened. We disappeared, and now we're back. So, signal must
Judkins. Yeah.
the signal must have kicked out on us, and so we're back. So all right, let me get back into what I was saying. So for college football, there's an article out there that talked about the most exciting players for 2023, and one of those guys is Quinshon Judkins. And I have to agree. I think he's going to be one of the better running backs in the country. He's going to be one of those guys that could be one of our workhorses of the week. As far as running back goes, is there anybody else that you could think of on the list that you're really excited to see this upcoming season?
I mean, as far as backs that could make a real difference in the fall, he's definitely up there as far as most exciting players. I also think that when you're thinking about the rest of the country and other conferences like the Big Ten and Big 12 and whatnot, I think that probably with the SEC is going to probably have your biggest bevy of backs, whether it's Tennessee with Wright, Smalls. I believe you've got Kendall Milton, Branson Robinson, DeJuan Edwards at Georgia. They're going to be extremely good. And honestly, outside of him, one name that I would keep an eye on for a running back that nobody's talking about that could be really good this year. It's in the state of Texas, and it's not with the Longhorns. Reuben Owens committed to Texas A&M, true freshman. He looked really, really good in limited action in the spring game. I think that offense, while Texas A&M isn't going to be a 10-win type team this year, I definitely think they're going to be improved enough on offense to be in every game that they play and maybe set themselves up to be, a decent contender within the West. They may be the third or fourth best team in that side of the league this year, maybe fifth. But Reuben Owens is going to keep them in every game this year. I'd expect them to be somewhere along that 8-4 line this year, which is a massive improvement from last year.
Another guy that they have up on the list is Bo Nix, quarterback from Oregon. I do feel like that, I'm interested to see what he can do in this really final year in college football. I don't know if he's probably the most exciting quarterback that I'm interested in seeing, but I do feel like he's got to be one of those guys up there.
Yeah, I mean, I think quarterback-wise, if we're talking the most exciting, Caleb
probably
Williams.
Caleb Williams, you would think.
Caleb Williams and Quinn Ewers.
Right, Texas guy, yeah.
Yeah, and then honestly, you've got three within the ACC, Cade, Jordan Travis, Drake May, all three. And honestly, you could toss Riley Leonard in that mix as well. It's a very quarterback-heavy league in the ACC this year. Exciting-wise, I would probably put Bo Nix in the same level as Kyle McCord at Ohio State. People are going to beat their chest if he has a good year, even though he's got 3 NFL Pro Bowlers as wide receivers this year. I'm not really super excited. I think that he'll run Oregon's offense very well. I think that marriage of his style of play with Oregon's style of offense was something that he needed to do, and I think Oregon could absolutely win that league this year. It just is dependent upon their defense this year. I wouldn't have him as the most exciting player, but definitely somebody who could be a contender, make his team a contender in 2023.
I can see why people are hyped up about Bo Nix because he's got new offensive coordinator Will Stein from UTSA, who was lighting people up as well on the offensive side of the ball. So I'm interested to see what they can do over there in Oregon. Obviously on the list, Nicholas Singleton, another running back, another workhorse of the week, probably right up there with Judkins as 1-2, 1A, 1B, best running backs in the country. Raheem Sanders as well, right up there. And you mentioned this, I think, or earlier we talked about Ohio State and Marvin Harrison Jr. To see him play one more year in college, I think it is exciting as well. I believe this will be his last year to kind of show what he can do. And I really do believe if he did not get knocked out of that game, Ohio State seemed like they were going to win the game against Georgia.
Yeah, he's a difference maker. That wide receiving core is, if we were putting pound for pound units against each other, is the best in the country. I hate admitting that, because I can't stand Ohio State, but you can't deny just the murderer's list of outstanding talent they have at wide receiver, and Marvin Harris is at the top of that list. They're going to be a problem to deal with through the air this year. You could put Will Proctor back there lobbing passes, and they're still going to throw for 300 yards just because of wide receivers. So he's definitely the best wide receiver in the country. I'm just interested to see kind of who picks up behind him. I know there's a lot of smoke for the wide receivers at Florida State. I'm wait and see. I think Johnny Wilson is very good. He's going to be a challenge to deal with just because of his size and speed. But I also want to wait and see on how Keon Coleman performs. I know they had Micah Pittman in their offense last year, who was, a starter at Oregon, and it didn't really. I don't know. He was kind of second fiddle to Johnny Wilson. I'm curious if that happens again with Keon Coleman coming into the fold there, and just kind of thinking. One wide receiver that nobody's talking about simply because he's on the West Coast and not in LA is wide receiver from Washington, Romeo Odunze. Odunze. I'm botching his last name. You want to talk about a fun offense is Washington. Kalen DeBoer came in there and completely overhauled that team. And it is there's no way to put it other than it is an up-tempo gunning offense, and he is the lead dog in that wide receiving room. And I think that Washington, because of those changes, I don't know how far it carries them into the postseason, if they're truly a competitor to win the league. I know they have to go to USC this year, but I definitely think that they could set themselves up for a Pac-12 title game, more than likely with USC this year.
Another article I was looking at, which is former 5-star recruits with first-round draft potential in 2024. Okay. We'll start with the quarterbacks. You got Drake May, Caleb Williams, Quinn Ewers, J.J. McCarthy, and Bo Nix. Honestly, that's a pretty good group of guys. They have all kind of developed in their own unique way, and are all guys that you would want to tune in and watch on a Saturday.
Yeah. You could also add a few names like Riley Leonard is draft eligible this year. Do I think he goes or not? That's yet to be seen. There's a lot of things that could happen between now and the end of the season. If he has an amazing year, Riley Leonard could be added to that list. Oh man!
These are 5-star guys. I don't know if Leonard was a 5-star.
No, he wasn't. Yeah, you're talking about 5 stars.
But so we got more. I'll give you some more. So you got Alabama 5-star guys. They made their own little paragraph for Alabama. J.C. Latham, offensive lineman. Dallas Turner, the edge rusher. Kool-Aid McKinstry, the guy that Clemson went after pretty hard at the cornerback position, and then Ja'Cory Brooks, their star wide receiver that they want to see do really well this season as well. Those guys have to play really well for Alabama to do well, but they also got to figure out who their quarterback is in 2023. So there's a lot of questions on Alabama to be able to get back to where they are. Now, a lot of people say, oh, well, they just reload, but you never really know. I mean, you can't take that for granted. It's not easy to stay at the top. They also give a section for Ohio State prospects that were 5 stars. Actually, Marvin Harrison Jr. was a 4-star. Big miss there from the guys. But either way, Travion Henderson was a 5-star. He's a running back that's going to come back from injury. Before he was injured, he was 1,500 yards rushing. So you got to think if he can stay healthy, he would be another one of the best running backs in the country. Emeka Egbuka, the wide receiver on the other side of Marvin Harrison Jr., he was a 5-star guy. And then they've got offensive guard Donovan Jackson. They've got edge rusher Jack Sawyer. You remember Jack Sawyer because he was the guy that Mark Wahlberg, the very first NIL deal for Ohio State was Mark Wahlberg getting him this really tricked out truck. And then JT Tiamoloa, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but those all guys signed in 2021 and are big time guys that they expect to be on the lookout for big draft guys in 2021. It takes some time to get into some Clemson guys. Will Shipley was a 5-star, and he's eligible for the NFL draft in 2024. So do you feel like that Will Shipley could reach that first round draft pick? I mean, it is difficult already for a running back.
Yeah.
So I kind of don't beat him up
Mhm.
because it's difficult already for a running back to do that.
Yeah, he would have to have an insanely good year to reach first round level, and that's not even at his fault. Like somebody like Trayvon Henderson, or even his counter Mayan Williams.
Mayan Williams, yeah.
Yeah, both of those guys are just as talented, or if not better, as far as like a draft perspective. And I have a hard time believing that either of those guys will go first round. Running backs don't generally go in the first round, not unless you're Todd Gurley, who's a literal once in a generation kind of running back. And even he went late. He went late in the first round. So I wouldn't fault anyone if he doesn't go in the first round. Running backs are not the type that I'm like, oh my gosh, we had this 5-star running back and he didn't go the first round. That's just the nature of the biz.
Right.
So that's how it goes.
Well, we've got some defensive guys too, and then we'll wrap up the show. I appreciate everybody getting over on YouTube. We're live on YouTube every Thursday night, 7 p.m. to as long as we go. Sometimes we're on the radio as well. I appreciate everybody getting in over there. If you see us there on video side, that's on YouTube. But I also started a space tonight just to try it out and see how it goes. We've had a few people get in on the space and give us their thoughts as well. So I appreciate you over there. But overall, this has been a good live stream, even though I had that technical difficulty. So appreciate everybody joining in. On the defensive side of the ball, guys that I see of note that were former 5-star guys that could break into the first round in 2024. Tony Grimes, cornerback, who's now at Texas A&M, but was at North Carolina and was a guy that Clemson really wanted and went after. Justin Flo, who's now at Arizona, who was originally at Oregon, who also is a guy that Clemson went after. And then Jordan Birch, who is now at Oregon, who was at South Carolina, who's another guy that Clemson went after. So 3 transfer guys that Clemson could have very easily gotten on their team and possibly had stayed with the Tigers maybe longer or not even transferred at all. But those 3 guys are in new locations. They're looking for a blank slate and possibly break into that first round draft pick, level in 2023 going into 2024. And then you've got Barrett Carter, a former 5-star guy, linebacker. He's already getting a ton of first round attention. And then the chat gets in and says, well, hey, now, what about XT? Well, the thing about XT is outside of Clemson, they've kind of forgot about him.
Yeah. I mean, I think as far as talking about defensive players, here's the thing about XT. I'll start with that. XT is the type of person that if he puts together a full healthy season, he could be a first-round talent. And people could scoff at that, but you look at the times that he's been healthy, his freshman year all the way back in 2018, he looked amazing. And then you think about when he was on the field and healthy in 2022, he was productive. He was dominant. He was a game breaker as far as that goes. Now, if you were to get that from week 1 through the final game of the season, whenever that may be, he could absolutely put up the numbers to be a first-round draft pick there. As far as the other 3 guys go, I think it's kind of funny because, Barrett – as you mentioned Barrett Carter. Barrett Carter is the best linebacker in the draft next year, and the second best one, it was not a 5-star, and that's Jeremiah Trotter. Those are the best 2 linebackers that are going to go 1 and 2. Justin Flo, take it or leave it. I'm glad that Clemson got who they got. I wouldn't trade any of those guys for that. And you look in the secondary, same kind of situation. I can't remember if Makuba was a high 4 or a 5. I think that varied per service. He could play his way into that. I've seen some mocks that have him being a first-round type talent, but I do think that he's a better prospect overall than Tony Grimes. You think about how porous that UNC defense was, and there were some issues they had in the secondary. I don't know if you can put them all on Grimes, but I would take Makuba playing his natural position over Tony Grimes any day. And then you look at Jordan Birch. I mean, what you want
Don't
me to
say
say?
anything about Jordan.
You
Well,
know, what you
those
want me
guys,
to
like I
say?
said, I like those guys as far as I don't know them personally. I'm interested to see what they can do in 2023 under new leadership, new, fresh university. Give them a chance to see what they can do and maybe possibly reach the potential that we all thought that they would reach. But all right, everybody. Well, I appreciate you being a part of the show, Houston. I know you're going to take your break. You're gonna get some rest and recharge, and hopefully we'll see you during the football season sometime. So I appreciate you being a part of the show. Thank you, everybody over on Twitter Spaces for being a part of the show. I'm going to end that on my end here, and then thank everybody on YouTube for being a part of the show as well. We're going to continue this every Thursday night as long as we can, and as always, Tiger fans, we will see you at the top of the hill.